Good evening, welcome to another Hot Topic where we discuss the issues affecting East Yorkshire and Northern Lincolnshire. The floods of summer 2007 were the most serious inland floods to affect England and Wales since 1947. In Hull, one person was killed, 8,600 households were flooded, and 91 of the city's 99 schools were affected. In December 2013, there was a tidal surge affecting both sides of the Humber. 300 homes and businesses were flooded. What lessons have been learned? Are enough strategies in place to prevent further flood risks? I'll be discussing this tonight with my guests, Councillor Alan Clark, Hull City Council's portfolio holder for neighbourhoods and communities, and Peter Drennan, a director at Hull-based firm Allen Wood and Partners. Well, welcome Alan, welcome Peter.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to start off with then. So Carl Minns was the leader of Hull City Council in 2007. He's quoted as saying that if it were Chelsea or Fulham, this would have been in the paper for days and days. Think about what's happening with Carlisle recently. I'll come to you first, Alan. Did it seem that Hull was forgotten?
Hull's always forgotten when it comes to the national news, and I think that's well documented in our area. Why other areas get so much highlight is anybody's guess, really. And I think it's a travesty for the area, because it's such a beautiful area as well that we live in, whether you live on the north side or the south side of the Humber itself. And why we was forgotten is anybody's guess.
And Peter, this was devastating for people's lives, wasn't it?
Certainly was. I mean, it's a massive impact on people's lives to be flooded, and it's so much disruption and so much time to actually repair and get people back into the homes properly. It's a massive disruption to them.
And when it comes to the council's response then, do you think it was immediate enough?
At the time, yes. We did everything that we could at the time, and we learnt from that as well. As we moved on to 2013, we learnt a lot of lessons back from 07.
Because I have here, Alan, it says there was issues with dehumidifiers. One Hull resident has said that for about a fortnight she couldn't come downstairs. She was waiting for one that never turned up. She was having to put a central heating on day and night. A lot of people felt stranded, didn't they?
Oh, they did, absolutely indeed. I think that there was a major shortage of things across the country, because it wasn't just obviously Hull that was flooded. There was other places as well. So it was completely unexpected. Nobody expected so much rain to fall so heavily in such a short period of time. And we was all taken unawares, really. You could say that we was caught with our trousers down anywhere in the country. So everything was in short supply.
Do you think more preparation should have been there in case an instance like that was to happen? In case an event like that was to happen, should more have been put in place prior to be prepared?
Looking back at it now, yes. But at the time, you can't predict that sort of rainfall. It was enormous. We was talking an Olympic-sized swimming pool falling on the city every second. It was immense. Nobody could predict that.
And people were out of their homes for a long time, wasn't it? It says 1,476 people were still out of their homes 1 year after the flood, with 293 people still in caravans. That's 1 year after. Coming to you with your expertise then, Peter, could more have been done for people to get back in their homes quicker?
You could put more resource, more people at it, but as Alan said, it was happening all over the country, and there's a limited amount of resource that's available to actually fix things. So unfortunately, people get put in a position where they're in a queue, and it does take time. It's not a process, it's not a quick fix. Drying things out, getting things right is not quick, it takes time. And yeah, it could be done with more resource, but no more resource was not available.
But from your point of view, as everything you do, you know, from as far as the building aspect goes of it, could anything have been different there?
It's now been, measures have been taken, and there's a lot more studies, there's a lot more information. People are more conscious of the fact, and homes and things are built to actually got built in, the levels are looked at, and more flood prevention type elements are put in place for the future and going forward. So yeah, it's I think I've forgotten where I'm going with that one.
No, that's fine. I mean, if we move on then, so about the information that was out there, I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it? But Did people get the help they needed? Was there someone on the end of the phone? Where could people turn?
Well, in Hull there was always the call centre that they could call 300. It's still in use now. There was customer service centres, there was councillors out there on the streets, there was lots of council vehicles out on the streets as well, trying to do everything that we could. There was lots of emergency services out on the streets as well. It was just such a big devastation across such a large area of the city, where you look at Cumbria that's happened now. It's in a big area, but it affected just 700 or 800 homes, where we need to times that up by 10 in the city, where we was, over probably a larger area as well. So there was just so much needed to be done. It was impossible to get around, I think, at times.
I think there was a lot of community and business support as well. Everybody rallied round. Everybody, you know, there was that spirit came out.
Yeah.
Well, that was
and everybody
it, wasn't it?
tried to help.
Yeah, there was fantastic community spirit. I remember driving home and everybody on the streets and out with the buckets and the local MPs around, wasn't there? And I know with the councillors, you as a group, didn't you all go out onto the streets and be the kind of front facing people for people to look to? Is that correct?
Councillors did, yeah. I wasn't elected at that point in time, unfortunately, but yes, councillors did. It was all over the papers. You saw them. If you went up near the areas, you could recognise who the councillors were. You could recognise who the council workers were. Even the residents coming out and helping. Everybody got together. It was a big community feel, the biggest one I've ever seen, really, within the city, and people helping everybody because it was so devastating. Everybody needed some help somewhere, and still to this day, everybody in the city knows somebody was flooded, and I think that will carry on for generations.
And it was devastating, wasn't it, in 2007, and then for the tidal surge to then hit in 2013, and for people to be affected once again.
Yeah, it was, yeah. I mean, again, it's like you said about the swimming pool water falling on the city. The tidal surge was a complete freak. You know, it wasn't even at high tide when the tidal surge hit, when it came in, but the weather conditions coming down from the top of Scotland and the pressure systems over the British Isles just caused a massive lift. You know, it was over a metre lift in the water level in the river.
Was there anything that could have been done to prevent that?
No, it was kind of a perfect storm, really, wasn't it?
Perfectly, it was natural. Everything was natural. It could have been a lot worse if it had hit when the tide was at high tide.
It would have been worse, I think, as well if Spurn Point wasn't where it was.
Yeah.
Because Spurn Point, oddly, is that natural barrier that sweeps the water down down the North Sea. And if that wasn't there, then it'd be just horrendous. The devastation will be even further up the river, I think, as well. I think we'd probably be talking Goole would have been underwater.
Because they say these events with the tidal surge, and I know that 2007 was heavy rainfall, but this may happen again, mightn't it?
It's happening all the time.
Yeah.
Tidal surges are happening all the time, and there's a constant prediction of where the surges are. The Environment Agency are looking at it all the time, and people can actually sign in, pick up warnings, and communicate with the Environment Agency, who watch for these tidal surges. They watch the weather systems. They have weather warnings and surge warnings coming in as they move further forward. They can predict more accurately. They know if it's going to happen as it moves further and further and closer to the time where they think it's going to happen.
I think it's important as well that people who've got the ability to be on social media follow people like the Environment Agency.
Yes.
Because they'll give out weather warnings plenty in advance. And if they can, say for example on Twitter, set it for alerts from the Environment Agency, so they're getting as much advance warning as they can. Because that's very important as well. Because if you know that you've got a huge tidal surge coming, or you've got some real bad adverse weather conditions coming, you can start to take some kind of action against it. I know we in the city do, and we do emergency planning ourselves as well. So as soon as we get advance warning from the from the Environment Agency, we have a team that comes in from all over the city of people who are council officers and civilians as well as the police and the fire brigade, and we start looking at what's happening and look to put people where they need to be across the city, along with our CCTV network.
Okay, gentlemen, well, we'll have to leave it there for that half then, but we will continue this debate after this short break, so please do stay with us.
Drainage is one a lot of people don't actually realise, but a lot of water can enter the house by the drainage system. You can come back through the pipes, come back into the house through the foul drainage and surface water systems if there's links into the building. So there's things called non-return valves which you can fit onto your drainage system, which only means the drain will only operate one way and stops the water coming back in, so it stops it on the drains. You can buy special covers that go over air bricks that stops the water penetrating through the air bricks through the walls, that go through the walls.
Welcome back. Still with me in the studio are my guests, Councillor Alan Clark and Peter Drennan. Peter, people are back in their homes now. They've been returned to their original condition, a lot of them. Is that lining them up for future incidents? Is it a missed opportunity to prevent future flooding? Is there anything you can do protection-wise to your home?
Yes, as a homeowner, there are things you can do. Drainage is one. A lot of people don't actually realise, but a lot of water can enter the house by the drainage system. You can come back through the pipes, come back into the house through the foul drainage and surface water systems if there's links into the building. So there's things called non-return valves which you can fit onto your drainage system, which only means the drain will only operate one way and stops the water coming back in, so it stops it on the drains. You can buy special covers that go over air bricks that stops the water penetrating through the air bricks through the walls, that go through the walls. And also it's quite cheap these days to be able to buy a flood barrier that it's quickly assembled on your door. You can actually seal it onto your door and assemble it and put it onto your door. So as long as you can put those measures in place yourself quite simply and quite effectively, and not too expensive.
Are people aware of this though? Whose responsibility is it to tell people that they have these options?
It's research really on the internet that would do it. I think we could probably do more in terms of telling people that these things are available, and make sure that people are aware of this.
And even talking about the flooding then, it wasn't people who were just flooded. You had the people who, called secondary flooding. So they didn't find out until months down the line that they'd actually been affected with the water being beneath the property. Major repairs had to be carried out months later, and that brought its own problems, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely indeed. There was quite a few residents in the ward I represent in Hull, where I went into the houses and you just literally you peeled the paper off without any resistance whatsoever, and you could see behind it where the water had just crept up the wall, and it was just awful. So then you take some floorboards up and you can see how sodden it is underneath. Being the city built, it's a clay base really. It's Hull, so the water doesn't go very far. It's a battle. It's a continuous battle.
Could the council do more to make people aware of what their options could be to protect themselves?
We already do a great deal of things, and again we put a lot out through social media. We don't have the finances to do the booklet that we used to have before. We used to send a magazine out about every quarter to every household in the city, and in that we filled it with all sorts of things, all sorts of information that people needed, and it was really useful. People really welcomed that, but unfortunately, when the new government came in 2010, there was quite a vehement thing against councils allegedly wasting money on these types of things. And to me, it wasn't wasting money. We spent about £250,000 a year. It's a great deal of money to a lot of people, but £250,000 a year informed the residents of so many different things. We couldn't afford it now.
That's understandable that may you're saying that's the government, but could you not take that on in a different way through social media, or is there not any other way that you could get out to people who have been affected by flooding what they can do to protect themselves?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Again, we mentioned social media before with the Environment Agency. If people have got the capability to use Twitter or Facebook or whatever, absolutely get people talking about flooding. It's one of those subjects that not everyone really wants to talk about. They know about it, but it's not sexy enough to talk about. But people need to talk about it.
They do, and with the secondary flooding, that caused a lot of problems for householders when it came to insurance, didn't it?
Yeah, and it still does now. Even the insurance companies now, they still don't seem to be able to get a grip on the fact that the Environment Agency is doing all these works for flood defences and all the other works that we've done around the city. And as soon as they're finished, they're uploaded onto the Environment Agency's systems, which all the insurers can see, but they choose to look at a different system, one which is way behind the times. So to me, they're only doing that so they can keep their premiums at a higher level than what they actually need to be. And people are losing out. People can't afford to have flood insurance because of this data that insurance companies aren't using. And it's wrong. And we're trying to address that now through the flood committees that I sit on, whereby we're taking it up to a Yorkshire region area, and then we're going to take it up to a national area, and we're going to talk to MPs about it as well to try and get these insurance companies to listen, to start using the Environment Agency's maps more so they know when a flood defence has been built, it's there, and they can program that straight into their systems, and it should be able to affect people's premiums to the householders' advantage rather than the insurer's advantage.
That sounds like great work you're doing there, but when it comes to this, obviously insurance companies, they're out to make money, aren't they? At the end of the day, they're a business. Whose responsibility is it to foot this bill?
I think, going back to the point that you just made there about the doing the modelling and looking at it and trying to predict better outcomes, there is, at the moment, the Environment Agency and the local authorities are doing some massive studies and some massive modelling to get accurate fixes on what happens with fluvial flooding, which is the rainfall, and what happens with tidal flooding, coming up on tidal surges. And that is happening, and hopefully we're going to get some results that can be taken back to the insurance industry, etc. But I think the people that's got to drive the insurance industry is the government. Yeah,
I think you're absolutely right. You really are. And it's about time they woke up to people who can't afford to take a £10,000 excess or a £5,000 excess. In fact, quite honestly, I think that's ludicrous that people should have to take those sorts of excesses.
Yeah.
But that's it, isn't it? Isn't it unbelievable that people are having to go through this? When they've bought a home, they didn't know that was going to be the case. They didn't know that it was going to flood that way, and that.
Yeah, absolutely, indeed, yeah. And it's, to me, it's about everybody taking a responsibility.
Yeah.
As whether it's a householder or whether it's a surveyor that goes and does the initial survey, or whether it's the insurance company who you decide that you're going to go with, everybody's got to take some kind of stance or take a piece of the pie and say, this is my piece and I'm going to take responsibility of that. And sometimes I just don't think that some of these big insurance companies care about that. It's all about how much money can we get.
And when it comes to taking responsibility then, for those that do rent from the council, they're very dependent, aren't they, in terms of repairs and what's done. They don't really have a say, do they? They have to, go along with what the council can offer them.
Yes. If you're in a council house, we do always recommend that people get contents insurance anyway. And the rest of the building is our responsibility. So if it floods, it's up to us to foot the bill. We have our own insurance that we do. So we look at how we can afford to do those things. And it's a bit of a trade-off at times as well. Because obviously budgets are getting so tight and so squeezed, it's really difficult to know what to do for the best sometimes. So you take as much professional advice as you can, you weigh it all up and go, well, that looks to be the best route, let's do that.
When the floods hit, was there any extra supports available for low-income households and vulnerable people?
In a nutshell, no, quite frankly. In 2007 there was £3.5 million given to the city from the government to help with the flooding. I can't guarantee that money was actually spent on the flooding. We presume it was spent elsewhere. When the floods came in 2013, we was given very little help from the government as well, again. But the only good thing that has come out of the 2013 flood is we've now got the new defences which we've just opened on Albert Dock, which has cost £6.6 million. So that's been something that's come good.
Going back to that though, I think that, rolling the clock back 18 months, I think the government did wake up and somebody suddenly realised that the Humber estuary actually contributed a massive proportion of the country's gross domestic product. And everybody sort of looked and thought, great. They've woken up. They've actually started to recognise us and the economic importance of the region, etc. A lot of promises were made by the government in terms of pushing Hull up the league for to do work and support it and give it grants, etc., etc. And to be honest, it's all gone quiet, and they've actually started to cut back on those grants, and they're not actually giving the money to the region.
Yeah, we'll come back on that in the next part about flood defences. But being back on insurance, people had difficulties contacting them. They was getting no response, were they, of these some of these insurance companies? This was prolonged. This was going on for a long time.
No, absolutely indeed, yeah. And I think insurance companies have woken up to that fact. As we saw it in Cumbria, there was there on the door, there was in the wellies, there was there, the water's just receding and they're wading through it, the insurance companies. I think finally they've woken up to that bit, but when you're paying such a high premium, you expect that. And
do you think there should be fair cover for all?
Absolutely.
Irrelevant of if you live in an area that's prone to flooding or not?
Yes, I agree, absolutely indeed, regardless. I mean, we have one high spot in the city that probably won't flood for a long, long time, and people still get tarred with that same brush. Oh, it's a HU postcode, you're going to pay a fortune in flood premium. And it shouldn't be like that at all, whatsoever. It's about time insurance companies got their act together.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Time now then for another break, but we will continue this debate once again very shortly, so please stay with us. Welcome back. I'm still with Councillor Alan Clark, Hull City Council's portfolio holder for neighbourhoods and communities, and Peter Drennan, Director at Allen Wood and Partners. We took to the streets of Hull to find out whether people think enough flood prevention measures are in place.
I'm behind the tidal surge barrier, so it hasn't affected me at all. I lost one of my favourite walks up and down the riverbank, but the work has been worthwhile and I've enjoyed seeing it come together.
Nature is what it is, isn't it? And you can't beat it really. You can try, you can do all the measures they are doing, but you can't try and beat it.
Yeah, I mean, I hope the government keeps putting their money into it, but other than that...
I think it's getting worse actually, because eventually, if they don't do something, Vicky Dock's all going to get flooded, so they need to do something else.
A lot of improving. If they don't, they're going to break the tidal barriers. If they don't improve them.
There's definitely a difference, but I think that when I was little, I'm 81 now, but when I was little, they used to dredge the rivers, the drains regularly. They don't seem to do that now.
Not really, because we are in a floodplain, aren't we? So there's not a great deal more they can do.
So a few people there then are saying that they want to see more. When it comes to flood defences, they want to see more. What would you say to that?
Well, they're absolutely right as well, and they should see more. But we have at the moment, as you've just seen, £6.6 million spent at Albert Dock. We're also spending millions of pounds up around Kirkeller and Willoughby areas, where we're building the new lagoons up there, which are horrendously sized pieces of earth that looks like just a bowl in the ground, and you think, well, it doesn't look exciting, but it does so much to protect homes. All those homes in the Derringham area of the city, this is all to stop them flooding, because you look at the natural lines of where the water runs off from the Pennine Ways and out that way. You can actually see by following it through and the projections and the modelling that's how it got into Derringham itself. So having these lagoons will protect them.
Now, you're saying a great deal is being done, but recently the government has rejected a £1.28 billion proposal to strengthen the Humber's defences against a tidal surge. Now, Liz Truss, the Environment Secretary, she said £75 million has already been spent on regional defences and another 86 will be invested in the next 6 years. Labour MP Diana Johnson, she's come in and said that 86 million was less than 10% of what was needed. Less than 10%. That's quite a scary figure, isn't it?
It certainly is, but I'm not completely sure about the figures, but I would say that, you know, the numbers we're talking about and the investment so far is a minor proportion of what's required. And again, going back to what Alan said very, very early on in the debate, if this had been in London or the southeast of this country, it would have happened.
Yeah.
The money would have been there,
Yeah,
the work would have been done, it would have been completed now.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely spot on. I mean, let's take it back to basics, so people can get a thorough like for like. Using that analogy there, the Thames is the most valuable river in the country, and is protected with the Thames Barrier and all sorts of other alleviations. The Humber is the second most valuable one in the country, and yet we can't get anywhere near that amount of money that we need to protect Hull, Grimsby, Goole, Immingham, and any other place along the actual estuary itself. And that's what we need. We need that money. I'd love for there to be a tidal barrier up near Spurn Point that completely protects the estuary itself. But that would cost billions and billions of pounds. That's not going to happen. But if it was in London, oh, well, yeah, well, we're all right. We'll throw that money at it. And this is something that we as residents, we as citizens of this area, should be outraged about, quite frankly. So Diana's right, what she's saying. You know, it's only a fraction of what we need. We have got another £200 million coming over the next decade, I believe it is, to protect along the Humber front and the River Hull, but it's not enough money.
But the government is saying, aren't they, that there's simply not enough money in the pot to go around?
Yeah, you know, something's got to be done. We can't just sit back and not do anything. I'm a great believer, and it's the politics, isn't it, that everybody's frightened to actually say, look, we're going to have to actually raise income tax and pay a little bit more to protect the place and do things. You know, let's do it. Don't try and win political gain and political votes by saying, oh, I've cut tax, because all we're doing is strangling the country by doing that.
What do you think the government could do?
I don't think that's a bad start, what Peter said there. By raise, I know it's a hot topic for people, but raise a little bit of extra income tax. What's an extra penny? Say, raises billions of pounds. That billions can go such a long way, whether it be frontline services, hospitals, or the fire or service, or the police service, or on flooding defences as well. It can go massively so far forward. And I'm sure people wouldn't mind paying an extra penny in the pound on the tax, if that's going to be seen up front.
Would people not say that once again they're having to put their hands in their pockets to do something that the government should be doing?
Well, yeah, everybody has to do, but we've got to spread that out, haven't we? We've got to be realistic.
The government can't make money. The only way the government generate money is from taxes.
Yeah, well, they could print more money and devalue the pound.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's something that we don't need, isn't it?
But I think what we've got to look at as well is the economic impacts on the region. It's not just the householders, but we've got some fairly major operators in the city now. With Siemens have come into Hull. We've got some really big global organisations that work in the city and provide employment. And, you know, if their insurance premiums start to go through the roof and they suffer some major traumatic flood events, which some of them had, you know, it could drive the economy down and take people away from the area and jobs.
Do you think that might make the government think twice if there's more investment in Hull, more investment on the Humber, that they might think, well, we'll give them a bit more money because we've got big investors here? We've got, you know, City Report for 2017, we've got, you know, Siemens coming in the wind industry. Could that have any kind of impact?
I think personally that the government, if it's above Watford, it doesn't exist, quite frankly, and I think a lot of the country think that as well. We need to get out of this north-south split divide, and we need more investment in the north. We can't just be seen as the poor relations all the time. We need to have that money. I'd love to have the money that's spent down south, that they spend on their flood defences, or that some of their communities get. I mean, it'd be a dream come true.
Is there anything that we can do to you know, be viewed differently if that is a real issue?
What we as a community, lobby your MPs. That's the best thing to do.
Yeah,
I mean, people. There's two big colours here in the area.
Sorry, I do.
No.
I'm going to stop you. No, I'm just going to have to stop you now, though. We're just going to go to a short break. Well, we'll be back soon. Welcome back to the final parts of this week's Hot Topic. We've been discussing flooding, and my guests are Councillor Alan Clark and Peter Drennan. Well, quickly then, before the break, we had to come on to MPs, what we can do to be viewed differently in London so we get the investment here to protect our residents against flooding.
Again, regardless of what colour your MP is that represents you in your area, you need to press them. You need to go to them and say, look, you need to do more for us as a community. And I know they work together. I know regardless of colour, again, they work together and they work very well for the estuary. But I think it's time that they worked a little bit harder, and they went a little bit harder on those particular ministers that deal with DEFRA and deal with the financial side of handing those monies out and say, well, look, don't forget us guys, we need that extra little bit of monies, so give us that bit of extra money.
Yeah.
Let's send the boys round.
I think the Humber's got a wonderful lobbyist in Lord Haskins, and I think Lord Haskins works very, very hard for the region, and he does work hard lobbying MPs. He pushes the issues like this. You know, people like Alan Johnson works very, very hard as well in trying to raise the industry or raise the profile of the area and get something done about this issue. So I think it's, those guys are working hard, and long may it continue. But it's, as Alan said, I think more people need to join in on that sort of carrying the flag and the banner and take it forward.
Absolutely.
Is the foot still on the gas, so to speak? It happened in 2007, happened in 2013. Are people starting to forget or not?
I think the people in London are, yeah, definitely. I think the last piece of wonderful news that they got was Siemens, and bringing Siemens, and there was train full of them arriving, coming to Siemens, and you sort of top level MPs were coming up and look what we've done, look what we've done. Now that's underway, that's happening. They've disappeared again.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's hope this never happens, but if it were to happen again, Alan, are there contingency plans in place?
Yes, we're doing everything we can along the river, along the Humber, along the River Hull, around the city as well. We're looking in the east of the city as well for another storage unit. We've got the storage units now in the west of the city. We've got other storage units that we're looking at in the north of the city as well. So we've got to do as much as we can. There's always more to do. There's always more money needed. And I don't think anybody can deny that. Whether it's ourselves, whether it's Yorkshire Water, whether it's the Environment Agency, we've all got a role to play, and we all need to make sure that we step up to that mark.
But is it different? Would your reaction, if it was to happen again, be different to the first time around?
I think if we got what Cumbria had got, I don't think anybody could do anything about that. Absolutely couldn't. But it was astronomical what they got. That amount of water was phenomenal. It really was. I don't think anywhere even London, I think, would have been completely flooded out. It was horrendous what they got. We can only do what we can do.
But what about Hull 2007? If that were to happen again, would things be different?
I'd like to think there was. I'd love to give you a positive answer and say yes it would or no it wouldn't, but I can't, because nobody can predict how much water we're going to get, whether it's going to come from the sky, whether it's going to come from the tide. But
what about how it was
both?
handled? We've discussed insurance, we've discussed about dehumidifiers, people not getting them, we've discussed about people didn't know where to go for information, that they were struggling. Would it be different, or would it be the same? Would there still be people who were struggling and didn't know where to turn? Have lessons been learned?
Lessons have definitely been learned in the industrial sector and in the manufacturing sectors, because people are a lot more aware of the devastation and the problems that occur, and they've taken a lot of time to write plans, have plans in place. They engage a lot more with the Environment Agency, and they get a lot more early warnings. Measures have been built on places to actually put flood prevention measures on their facilities. And I think that if it were to occur, there's a lot of places that wouldn't have the same sort of problems, because they'd be prepared, it would be done, and they've learnt the lesson, and they've really taken action.
And if it were to happen again, what would you say would be the biggest thing that would be different this time around?
I think we're more ready for it this time. whether it be tidal or whether it be fluvial. We've got a new pumping station up at Bransholme, so if there was those build-ups...
Because I know we've been saying about
Up in
kind of the
Bransholme.
investment in flood defences and that, you know, missing out on money and the government needs to do more. But, I mean, a great deal has been done, really, when you think about it. There's a lot of articles there. You've got the 6.6 million. You've got the sunken vessels, haven't you, that were taken away, that were causing an issue. Pumping stations, because that was a massive issue, wasn't it? Pumping stations.
Yes. the one up... Well, we could go back to 1996 on this. There was a report written in 1996 which stated that the pumping station up at Bransholme wasn't fit for purpose, and it took right until now for them to fix it and to do something about it. They brought the planning application in, I think it was a year, 18 months ago, to the committee. I was on that committee at the time, and it was firstly refused because, quite rightly, the committee said it was in the wrong place. It was the right structure, just in the wrong place. And they came back with another application, exactly the same as the first, and they managed to overturn it this time. They managed to get it through, so they got it where they wanted it to go, but I still believe that it's in the wrong place. It should have been built further away from the properties. All it would have meant was a little bit of extra pipe work difference for Yorkshire Water. That's the only big difference that they would have had. I mean, they talk about, oh, they would have had to puncture the lagoon that it sits in. Well, so what? You know, we can control a probe on Mars from Earth, but we can't puncture a lagoon. I'm sorry, but the arguments just didn't stack up for me in my mind. I led the charge originally for it to be refused. I believe I was right. I believe I was still right leading that charge, and that it should have been moved somewhere else. It worked now what they've got, and it'll work excellently. Whether they can clear the sewers out, whether there'll be enough water comes into the sewers for it, I don't know. Because
like dredging the drains and the streets and stuff, I think somebody said in one of the boxes, you don't really see that, do you? The drains being cleared out, and so it's not something you don't really see anymore.
No. If you go back many years again, it's about money and budgets, and people are not doing the maintenance because they haven't got the money to do it. You know, people, all the land drains and things used to be regularly cleaned. They left now, and you know that it doesn't. That would help a lot. Would help enormously.
And do you have a view on the Environment Agency, Peter?
Yes, I mean the Environment Agency are working hard, but again, their budgets have been squeezed and cut and cut and cut. You know, the Environment Agency was an organisation that you could go to and talk to, and they'd readily give advice to engineering companies like ourselves. Their budgets have been squeezed and cut that much now that if we go and talk to them, you know, they charge us.
I mean, being an engineering company, you're out there, aren't you, front-facing, doing the work, helping people. Obviously, you're a business and you're making money. But what is it that you see when you go out there? What are the main issues?
It's a lack of maintenance that happens. You know, the things haven't been maintained, things haven't been kept properly. You know, and it doesn't take long for, you know, even a gully that's on the side of a road that's blocked up. When volumes of water are travelling like that, it's phenomenal the effect that can have. So it is lack of maintenance and what have you. But going back to the thing where you said, have we learnt? I think now, going forward, when we go through a planning process, us being an engineering company that are involved heavily in that, in pre-planning of works and planning of works, there's a lot of time and effort is put into thinking about the flood issues. And that is a part of the statutory authorities like the councils. We talk a lot about that. We talk about levels. We set buildings to levels now that we hope are not, not going to flood.
Have previous events like the floods in 2007 and the tidal surge, has that affected what you do, the work you carry out?
Definitely, yes.
The way you go about it, the skills that are needed, the materials that are used?
Yeah, floor levels are set higher. There's actually places of refuge are put inside bigger developments now. And we sort of, the construction is done differently in that we don't have services coming from the underground and up walls, it comes from the top down, and it's flood sort of resilience construction is put into the first 600 high of the floors, etc. So that if it floods, it can be repaired and put back very quickly and put into operation, and there's none of this blown up the electrics and things like that because it's put at high level. And I think also critical infrastructure has been looked at fairly carefully and put in the right places.
I'm so sorry, I'm going to have to stop you there. Thank you so much for joining me today. That is it then for tonight's Hot Topic. Do join in the chat on Twitter using #HotTopic. Email your views on Hot Topic to news@estuary.tv. But until next time, goodbye.